everyone, and welcome to this edition of AgileDad University. Today we're going to explore Team John. My name is Lee Henson, president and founder of Agile Dad, and I'm so happy to have you all here. I know we're expecting a little bit of a crowd. I like to get the first question out of the way. Some people often ask, do you record these? Absolutely. So these are recorded sessions, and of course they're going to be available through AgileDad University, either on our AgileDad YouTube channel or available at agiledad.com. underneath the video section. So if you want to encourage your peers to watch this, or if there's someone who couldn't make it on for the call, we want to make sure they have an opportunity to view this as well. So it's great to see you all virtually, and I hope all of you are well and healthy, and I hope things are going good for you. I hope that you're experiencing some good traction with the attempts to overcome COVID, and that you and all those close to you are all healthy and well, and that things are going your way. So for those of you who've never met me before, I thought I'd start with just a brief introduction. So I hate talking about me, but formally since 2012, we've been trying to help companies do better. You know, I can sum it up pretty much in two sentences. One, we want to make certain that we humanize work and that we make work achievable for people. One of the things that frustrates me the most is when people come in with a very dogmatic approach to Agile. You know, Agile's not a one-size-fits-all or a red pill, blue pill solution. It's an opportunity for us to grow together and to learn. And not every organization implements Agile the same way. So it's important for us to take that into consideration. And then two, I think it's just learning is key. And I think that if we look at ourselves and we say we already know everything about a topic, that's usually when we know the least amount of topic. I think it's important for us to analyze it almost as if, you know, the size of your circle. So if the size of your circle is very small, then your outer circle only has a certain circumference that you can connect with. But as your circle of knowledge grows, that circle, if the circumference around the outside of the circle grows larger, thereby empowering you to learn more from those who you come in contact with. So Agile Dad just firmly believes that we can make a difference, and we hope that you'll benefit from this session. This is probably the most requested topic that we get at Agile Dad. It's all about Team John, what it is and how it works, and we're going to go through that. But I just want to remind you, we still have 2 more sessions that are planned coming up for free. One's on July 20th, where we're going to talk about the Agile 12-step program. This is a 12-step approach to implementing Agile in your organization. A lot of people call this the free coaching playbook. This literally is what we give to our Agile Dad coaches when they go on site at your organization to help you do coaching and to help you implement practice. The second is on August 3rd. It's the Executive Agility Playbook. Now, this one's really special. We've taken some time to curate and put some really good thoughts together around the things that an executive should know, or the things that an executive should be doing in order for them to be successful in their implementation of Agile. So we highly encourage you to take a look at those. We also have class Thursday and Friday this week, the Advanced CSPO. We have several other sessions, at least one of each there. We put the time zones on there. They're all virtual, but we put the time zones in case you want to join us. We would love to have you. So more information about that can be found on agiledad.com/events. Today, our subject is Team John. However, in the past, we've done 9 powerful ways to keep your teams motivated, using the force, understanding the 5 values of Scrum, the 7 deadly sins of technical debt, and the art of Agile estimating and forecasting, which are all available, as I said, via video on the YouTube channel or the Agile Dad website, or you can download the comic books. So each one of these has an accompanying comic book with some humor added. Every one of them has some Easter eggs inside, so it's fun to try to find Easter eggs, but there's lots of good information inside. So all 5 of our previous sessions, including the Agile Meetings Playbook, which is not listed here, have all been made available. I also want to remind you the Daily Stand-Up Podcast is in full force. We've had over 50 episodes, so I'm excited about that. Things are going really well. We appreciate you coming out to listen to that. And we also have just started an Agile Dad vlogcast where we had one of our special guests, Bill, on. He's the Agile Financial, and he talked to us about health and wellness and spirituality and tying it all back into Agile. So it's a pretty cool topic. So if you haven't had a chance to go check that out, you probably should run on over and check that out as soon as we're done here. So topics for today. Number 1 on the list, of course, is what is Team John? You know, where did it come from? 2, some of the logistics about what needs to be in place in order for you to practice this. 3, what are the rules regarding implementation of Team John? 4, how we handle interruptions, of course, is the key. 5, what if we don't have any interruptions? That would be a good day. 6, how do we achieve high performance? 7, Team John side effects, because with every good pill, you have side effects. And then 8, application and implementation of Team John in your organization. So with no more waiting, let's jump in. Let's talk about it. So what is Team John? So lots of words. I'm going to warn you ahead of time, but the good news is all of the text that you see here is contained in the comic book. So if the slide text is a little small for you, or if you want to obtain a copy for your own records, feel free to download the comic after the session. So what is Team John? Well, Team John started a number of years ago. I was at an Agile conference with my very dear friend John, and he is a special, special man. He was retired military with the U.S. Armed Forces, and he had an incredible countenance about him, but he always signed every email, always here to help John. And he was just an incredible person. And I had the opportunity to see him give back to a homeless veteran and help him get on his feet, provide clothes for this veteran, help him find a job. And I mean, he was the person that I always wanted to be. So I said, one day, I hope I could be as influential as John has been in the lives of others. And it was quite unfortunate, but he had, terrible tragedy occur and ended up passing away. And I figured what better way to honor him than to call this Team John, because it's all about helping people. People often ask, is this about Team John as in the bathroom? And I'm like, no, it has nothing to do with the crapper. This is just about helping people gain traction and helping teams stay focused. So this was actually invented by the team at Agile Dad in 2008 as a celebration of John. And we started out by conducting a study of numerous Agile organizations where we're doing coaching. And our goal was to try to figure out, were teams more successful if they had groups of 6 or more people, but frequently being interrupted? Or if we took that group of 6 and reduced it to 5, but had no interruptions, which team would be more productive? Now, lots of people think more people, more productivity, but it doesn't always work that way. Because if you're frequently getting interrupted or having disregard or whatever the case may be, you're going to find very quickly that the team becomes frustrated, that their productivity levels go way down, that the team morale plummets, and the teams just aren't happy. So the question is, how do we do this? Well, the key to keep in mind is that in many organizations, the first thing they think of when they implement Scrum or Agile is the role of the Scrum Master. And the number one role of the Scrum Master, everyone always says, to remove impediments. And while I agree with that on a certain level, I also disagree with that on a certain level. Let me explain what I mean. My thought is that the only way people in an organization, specifically teams, will grow is if they have an opportunity to overcome impediments on their own. If they have an opportunity to research what they need to do and tackle the impediment themselves. Now, that's not saying a brand new team shouldn't have help. What it's saying is that a Scrum Master and Agile coach is meant to be a servant leader, mentor, or guide to help teams solve their problems. If the problem is always solved, then the team will never learn how to solve the problem. I had a recent attendee in one of my classes. He was former military, and he asked me, he says, Lee, he says, if I'm walking on the outskirts of a base and I see one of my comrades, one of my people, one of my fellow soldiers trapped in a hole, the hole's 10 feet deep, 14 feet deep. It's an incredibly deep hole. It's like 10 by 10 by 10. It's just a huge hole. And this guy's just down there and he's trapped. What do I do? He's calling out, what do I do? And my first instinct was, you help him out of the hole. To which this guy's answer was, yeah, but then when you walk by the hole again, where's he going to be? Back in the hole. I think the more important question would have been, one, are you okay? As long as you're not injured and you're okay. The second question would be, well, how did you get down in that hole? What happened, right? And I think that this ties back to root cause analysis and tackling the actual problem. And I think that this is the story of Team John, that it's not about dropping a guy a ladder or lowering a rope. It's about getting the team involved in solving problems and the cross benefits that this has within the team and across the entire organization. So I think that this is where we're going to see the greatest value. So while I do rely on a Scrum Master to help facilitate resolution of impediments, and I do rely on them to help new teams learn and resolve impediments, I want them to be able to handle the growing influx of requests, reports, emergencies, all those things that prevent teams from being productive and reaching their sprint goal, right? So how do we position and how do we get teams to do that? In order for us to figure it out, we have to have some logistics in place. So in order for Team John to work effectively, you got to have a few things in order. First and foremost, you want to make sure that the team doesn't have less than 6 full-time team members. If they have more, or if they have 5 or less, trying to do this is going to be really rough, because when you take someone away from the team, it's going to impact them so dramatically that they're not going to be able to be successful when they try to implement this. So you want to make sure your teams have 6 or more members in order to be able to implement it. 2, you don't want teams that are going through the forming or storming phase of the Tupman model. If they're just starting to get to know each other, if they're just starting to really get to know the work and get to know each other, or if they're just in that storming mode where they're just frustrated and things just aren't going their way, this is not going to work well. This isn't going to be a powerful implementation. So you want to make sure that they're not informing or storming. They have to be either in norming or performing, and we can help them get there. That's what coaching's for, right? That's what Scrum Masters do. We want to make sure that you're 6 or more in a team. And last but not least, and probably most critical, is we want to make sure that we have a team that's not under a whole lot of pressure or debt. And we're going to talk a little more about that. We had lots of conversations about technical debt, but if your team is inundated with debt, it's going to be real hard for you to implement this, because then the person who rotates off on a team, John, is automatically going to become the person who tries to tackle, the bug queue or the update queue. And we don't want that to happen. We want to make sure that this person understands the value of what they're trying to provide, and that they can make sure that they have it right. So it's never, ever, ever intended, ever, and this is rare for me. You know how I'm so pragmatic about everything I do. For me to say never is pretty unique. So here it comes. Never, ever, 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 never is this intended to be just a bug fix team. You need to address that issue first before you come in and try to do this. So if you've got a whole bunch of outstanding defects, a whole bunch of outstanding debt, I encourage you to go back and watch. We had a presentation on the 7 deadly sins of technical debt. I encourage you to go back and watch that presentation and get together your plans and thoughts and organize a debt sprint to help eliminate a lot of that debt, so that you'll be prepared to implement this Team John piece. So team size matters, where you are in a Tupman model matters, and make sure you allow time to see tangible results, right? The last thing you want to do is try to throw this out there to a team with a ton of debt and hope that you see results. You will see results, but they may not be positive. So you want to make sure you set the team up for success if you're going to do this. So what are the rules? The rules are actually more simple than people think, okay? So 1, the most important rule. So I guess I should cover how it generically works first. So generically is that every team member is going to take part in this, right? Everyone. Now, there are different rules for the people who are on the front line doing the work versus a Scrum Master or a product owner. So for people who are on the front line doing the work, the way it works is you'll be working, and during your 2-week sprint, you'll be notified that in the next 2-week sprint, you're going to rotate off onto Team John. Now, each team will have a member who rotates onto Team John. So at any given point, if you have 6 teams or 7 teams, you may have multiple people who get together and form a single Team John. Now, you're only rotated off for that one single sprint. You're not rotated off for the long term, right? So the goal is to give each person a short time to rotate off to take care of things. So it's a single 2-week sprint. If you're doing 2-week sprints and you have a standard team size of 6 or 7, it's once a quarter per individual is what it boils down to. So they must follow these rules in order for it to work. Rule number 1, team members are not allowed to work on any work that's in the current sprint while they're on Team John. Because the truth is, if you're working on something in a current sprint and then you become interrupted, that's the same impact as interrupting the rest of the team. So we don't want to interrupt the rest of the team. So the goal here is we want to make sure that we're not interrupting the rest of the team. So you're not allowed to touch anything that's in the current sprint. Now, there is one exception. The one exception is if you have someone on the team who is the expert or the only person that can work on something, the only person who can fix something. Once again, you're going to hear me say this is a symptom. And the problem is that that information needs to be disseminated across the team, or people need to cross-pollinate and become cross-functional. Now, once again, there are exceptions there. If there's only one person on a team who knows Fortran or COBOL, I'm not going to make you teach everyone that art, right? I'm not going to have you, if there's an artist on a team, I'm not going to have the artist teach everyone how to do graphic illustration. That's not where I'm trying to go with this. The goal is that everyone with similar skills will be able to cross-pollinate and teach each other. So if I have someone who's an expert in a certain area of code that they coded many years ago and it's spaghetti code, it's just a mess, I want to make sure that that information is disseminated to the rest of the team so that you have 5 individuals that know 20% of what that other individual knows instead of a single point of failure. So that kind of ties into the only allowance that I have here. So if we're working on something in a current sprint and there's an interruption, and the interruption requires us going to that one single point of failure to get information, that's the only interruption that I would allow, and that's only for the initial handful of sprints. The second rule for Team John is team members are not allowed to be on vacation while they're on Team John. You must be present to win. If you're on vacation, you're not going to make it very well on Team John. It doesn't work that way. If you're on vacation, you're on vacation. Enjoy your time off, enjoy your time away. That's the way it should be, right? You shouldn't be working while you're on vacation anyway. Team John's not designed to just give to the person who's out of the office. And then third, team members are not allowed to pull from a never-ending defect or bug queue. We want to make sure that that doesn't happen, right? It's a rotation, but we want to make sure that people actually enjoy doing what they're doing. So those are the rules. No vacation. You're not allowed to work on anything in a current sprint, and you're not allowed to pull from a defect queue. Pretty easy rules, right? I tried to keep this as simple as possible. I wanted organizations to be able to thrive doing this. So the key to being successful when trying to implement this, once again, I'm sorry, lots of words, is how we handle the interruption is the key to whether or not this is successful. So if the interruption happens during sprint boundaries, the team member on Team John should work with the Scrum Master to address the issue. It's not saying that they're replacing the duties of the Scrum Master. It's just saying that you have an extra hand on deck so that when this logical information comes in, hey, we have this problem, we have this defect, or we have this issue, someone else is there to listen. And if at any point in time, the person who's rotated off on the Team John may be more junior, or may not know about this, or doesn't know what to do, or isn't aware, or feels uncomfortable, answering a question about this, they can directly go to the Scrum Master or product owner where they can learn more about the issue with them so that they can make sure that they address this properly. In no way is this intended to replace any other role or responsibility of another person. I want to make sure that's clear. It's just adding someone there to help handle these things as the category applies or as things come in. So if at any point they feel, I'm not good about this, they seek help. But if they think they know about it, right, they need to take care of these things. So I broke down the interruptions or the types of interruptions into 3 categories. I kind of used, living in Florida, I kind of used a hurricane category chart, right? So category 1 is something that is a non-issue. So let me give you a quick example. A category 1 would be Susie in Bozeman, Montana is unable to complete a $10 Diners Club transaction. While that's important and it's something we should address, it will cost us way more than $10 to research the issue, fix the issue. As long as it's not an ongoing problem, we can almost write that off as a one-off and say, you know what, let's send her a $10 gift card, apologize for the inconvenience, and if it comes up again, we'll resolve it. So many large organizations are coming up with this state or status that they call known but not resolved. And it's not in a way that they say, I'm trying to be disrespectful or mean or inappropriate. What they're saying is, we know that this is an issue, but it's not worth us diving in at this moment to figure out what we need to do to resolve the issue. Typically, when those type of issues come up, either the customer has found a suitable workaround, we may have inadvertently fixed it when we're fixing something else. There's lots of other things that could have happened, and we talk about those in the technical debt presentation. So our goal here is going to be to stay focused on Team John and say, those category 1 issues, they're great and we understand, but we're going to treat them as touch and go. We're going to say, okay, let's make sure we document this, let's archive it, let's put it away, so that when we build our new system or when we update our entire product, these are things that we can pull back into consideration and address at that point, as long as it's not an ongoing, persistent issue in the current product or service that you're building. So it's important to make sure that you have that distinction. Category 2 is the one we're going to talk about last. Category 3 is probably the most serious. And I realize there's category 5 hurricanes. I'm just saying category 3 is the most serious offense of this. So category 3 would be the same impact as Amazon saying, we're unable to accept credit card payments online. And oh, by the way, it's Amazon Prime Day. I mean, it's severe meltdown mode. It is nightmare. Stop the presses, stop everything and fix the problem, right? And that's exactly what we should do. If we're in a situation where we have that type of urgency around an emergency, it's important for us to do all hands on deck, even if the product owner needs to cancel a sprint or kill a sprint, stop a sprint in order for us to be able to do that, then that's what we need to do. We need to make sure we address the issue on point, on time, and make sure that we take care of that issue as it happens, right there on the spot, no questions asked. And this could mean that as a result, the team's not going to complete their sprint goal. And if it does, totally fine. That's totally acceptable. But the deal is, if you didn't have someone on the outside to field that, you could have impacted the entire team at once before you did due diligence and research to make sure it was that type of impact that was necessary in order for the team to be completely interrupted. Category 2 is the one that is probably the most prevalent and the one that's the least talked about. Category 2, 26% of people who complete this transaction with over this amount in their cart that pay with a Visa experience a 17-second delay at checkout. Okay, so in this case, you've got a bunch of things that are factored in. Is it the amount that they paid? Is it that they pay with a Visa card? Is it a combination thereof? Does it have anything to do with a specific item that was in their cart? Do you have to have all those factors in play? So this is something where the person on Team John could definitely jump in and help. So this is where this person might be able to do the best they can to try to reproduce whatever the thing was, to see if they can reproduce the error and see if they can figure out exactly what's going on. It might be an opportunity for them to, at minimum, document and talk about, hey, this is what I discovered, this is what's going on, and have all those things documented so that you can see exactly what's happening and can make better decisions that way. Or if they're not sure, or if it pertains to another team, maybe it's good for them to do pairing or peer reviewing with another member of Team John to try to focus in so that someone else can learn about what's going on with that particular portion of the product or service, or so that you can expand your knowledge learning about what's going on in another area of the product or service. So it presents everyone with an opportunity to address the issue as it comes in, and it allows the Scrum Master to tackle the bigger chasing down what we need to make it successful from a process perspective, and it allows the team members to address the actual issue as the issue arises. So it's kind of a balancing act, which is really cool. So while the team stays focused and completes all the work that they have focused on during their sprint for their sprint goal, the Team John member goes off and gets all the information that they need to make sure that the issue can either be fixed outside of the sprint by the people on Team John, or it's ready for the product owner to queue up to be number one on the list to be addressed in the next sprint. So it's either going to be queued up to be addressed in the next sprint, or it's going to be tackled by the team with Team John. So either way, the issue is going to be addressed. But this is the way all big companies handle interruptions. So what we're starting to see is a trend where, defect handling and interruption handling is being taken care of as, if this is mission critical, all hands on deck, we do it. If it's something that we probably would spend more money researching, and it's not a problem that's across an entire organization, an eminent issue, then we label it, tag it, known but not resolved, and look at it when we build our next update to the system. If it's something that does need to be addressed or potentially needs to be addressed, we need to queue up. Now, many people have called this in the past a spike, or an initiative where they take one person and say, hey, this is a spike in our sprint to reflect what's happening here. But what we've learned is that when you do that spike, oftentimes that still interrupts someone who has work in progress that they are expected to complete as part of the sprint goal, and that disrupts the team. So the key here is it's very similar with the way that we're handling it. We're just not disrupting the team in the process. We're letting them focus so that they can get their sprint goal achieved, hopefully, while the team member who's rotated off takes care of the issue at hand. Now, one other thing I want to point out, we had a question from someone who asked, what about the Scrum Master? Well, the Scrum Master is in a unique position. They're not going to rotate off like a team member does. What they'll do instead, since Scrum Masters are associated with teams, we will say, hey, if a Scrum Master seems to be burning out, or they're just not as sharp as they were before, or you could see that they're starting to need a break, right? They need a little rest. Oftentimes what I'll do in large organizations is I'll go to other Scrum Masters and I'll say, hey, for one sprint only, could you pick up one of Alicia's teams? Can you pick up another of Alicia's teams? Great. So Alicia, for this next sprint, you're going to rotate off on the Team John. And what that does is it gives Alicia a 2-week window to take care of things that she needs to do to sharpen her saw, to get back online and to be ready to roll for the next 2-week sprint. And it gives the other Scrum Masters an opportunity to step things up, to engage with different team members, and to help see what's happening in different areas of the organization or product, which is also very cool. So that begs the question, what about the product owner? Well, the product owner should have this already happening naturally. Let me explain. So if you follow Agile Dad's protocol with regard to coaching, training, and mentoring and leadership, one of the things that we frequently talk about is limiting the amount of work in progress and having teams swarm to an initiative to get it out to market. So there are times where a product owner may not have anyone in the organization working on their specific product or service. And it's just for a time, for a short period, because their product or service might be next in queue where all the teams are going to swarm and address that one, right? So as a natural byproduct, the product owner should rotate through based on having a really big initiative hit, having everybody swarm and take care of it, and then having everybody back away and say, okay, we're going to work on the next thing, while the product owner has an opportunity to prepare and refine their backlog, to meet with analysts to find out the impact of the last release, to meet with stakeholders and to hold focus groups and to do studies and to do research. And that's the way a true product owner should behave, so that they're gathering all the right information so that they can make critical decisions moving forward for the product or service. So once again, great question. So what if there are no interruptions? That's probably the second most asked question that I get. What if the sky is not falling? I love the picture with a little piece of the sky on the ground there. Well, if the sky is not falling, the individual and team John is expected to do things to increase their personal productivity. What kind of things might that be? They could wipe their machine. They could attend. They could attend a training session. They can read a book about an up and coming technology. They can install the latest edition of Visual Studio Eclipse, whatever they're working on. My point is, this is a time for individual improvement. We all know that one of the most impactful meetings in the Agile framework is the retrospective. This gives you a chance to do a personal introspective, to improve yourself, to improve your own performance, to help you become a better contributor to the organization and to the team. So this is a chance for you to come up for air, to get a breather. And one of the things that we found is that not every organization implements this exactly the same. So sometimes we see people go and work on as a team, go work together on a Habitat for Humanity house or another charity project. It just gives us an opportunity for these team members to work on something that they really enjoy. Maybe it's an innovation backlog where they could be working on these really cool projects that they never have a chance to get to. Maybe it's something personal that they need to take care of with regard to their family. I've had people attend Daddy-Daughter Donut Day, right? It's not saying that anything is out of bounds. It's just an opportunity for these people to improve their quality of life. And I think the biggest, most interesting thing about this is that when people do this, they become thrilled to work for your organization. They become so happy that they work for your company, and they want to tell others about it. They want to expand on it because they just can't believe that once a quarter they have this opportunity for self-improvement. So whether it's doing daily yoga or whether it's, different organizations implement this differently, but this is the key. If there's no interruptions, let that person have downtime. The last thing you want to do, and this is aimed for all you leaders, all you managers, all you directors, anyone who's out there listening to this broadcast, the last thing you want to do is find something for that person to do. I'm going to say it again. The last thing you want to do is find something for that person who just rotated off to do. If they're rotated off, they've earned that time. They've earned that downtime. They've earned the opportunity to be able to focus, regain their energy, refresh, recharge, do whatever they need to do to be successful. They have earned that time. So let's not take that away from them, right? We need for them to decompress, to be prepared, to provide, high performance for the next several sprints. So the key to doing it successfully, I even had one individual, I'll never forget it. He was one of my star architects inside of an organization. And he told me, he says, Lee, he says, can I be the first to rotate off? I said, yeah, let's do it. So I rotated him off. And I said, what are you going to be doing? Do you have something planned? He says, if you need me, I will be in my cube eating Cheetos. And everybody got a kick out of that. But sure enough, I told my admin at the time, I said, will you do me a favor? Will you go out to the store and buy as many different types of Cheetos as you can. And I gave her $25, and she came back with bags. She had the puffy kind, the crunchy kind. She had blazing hot, flaming hot. She had every type you could possibly imagine. And by the end of the 2-week sprint, you walk by this dude's cube, and I swear to you, his fingers had like a half-inch crust of Cheeto dust on every finger. And, and people were sitting here looking at me going, "You're crazy. That's the number one performing person in the entire company." And they're sitting at their desk with Cheeto dust all over their fingers. How can you justify this? And my answer was simple. For all of you who've ever worked in a technology-based company before, is it possible for someone who's a rock star performer to sit perfectly still for 2 weeks and not think of anything that they can do to contribute? No way, right? This individual spent that entire time trying to solve a major complex problem. But too many times in too many companies, we rate people and judge people by this instead of by this, right? So we need to make sure that we're focused on what they're trying to do and the thought process that goes into building. It's easy for us to go find code on the internet that we can copy and paste. I didn't say that out loud, guys, sorry. But it's harder for us to really be thoughtful about what we're trying to process, especially if it's a non-technology product. We're trying to provide a solution. I was at one of the very large entertainment industry, theme park industry clients that I have here in the Florida area. And one of the things that they were talking about is, queuing people up and social distancing and preparing to open and all this good stuff. And we had so many valuable conversations about what the real problem was and how to keep people, ready to understand that they have certain rules and protocol that they have to follow, but also make it an enjoyable experience for them. And I think that was the key. And we came through with a really cool plan that I'd love to share with you now, but we're not open yet. So as soon as they open, we'd love to share that with you. There's so many cool things that we've seen go through, and so many great conversations that have been had. So we want to make sure that you understand that this doesn't just apply to technology. This whole concept of Team John applies to any individual on any project, who has uptime and downtime and can help avoid interruption for the rest of the team. So that's the key, right? Go through the list on Rapunzel. They could read a book, sew a dress, candles, candle making, yeah, the whole list. You get it. Okay. So the concept that we're trying to make sure we push through here is that out of the 5 active team members who are engaged, without the person on Team John, so the 5 active engaged team members, at least 2 of them, or 40%, are in high performing mode. How do we know this? Well, these individuals are either preparing to rotate off onto Team John, so they're either preparing their way so that they can rotate off, or they just got back from Team John and are 100% refreshed. So at any given time, you've got 2 individuals who are just making it happen, who are rocking and rolling, who are just jamming through this, and they're in high performance mode. So over time, over a course of 3 to 6 sprints after you get this implemented and rolling quite comfortably, what you're going to see is that not only does the performance increase, you'll see that your team members are happier, morale goes up, you'll see that the velocity levels off and then eventually increases, which is really interesting because the team of 5 without interruption is very much able to do more work than a team of 6 with frequent interruptions. So the team of 5 without interruption is much more able to fulfill work than a team of 6 with frequent interruptions. So the team member who rotates off, in addition, also has a chance to really cross-pollinate and to learn about other areas of product and service that they're working on. And the whole goal, once again, is to produce T-shaped individuals and T-shaped teams. So this whole week, what we've done, so for today through Friday, we've dedicated every single one of our Agile Dad podcasts. So if you haven't listened to the Daily Stand-Up podcast, once again, shameless plug, go listen to the Daily Stand-Up podcast. It's 15 minutes or less a day. But this whole week is dedicated to building good teams and to building team members and to build them as individuals and to build high character, high quality teams. So every topic this week covers it. Everything from physical, personal, and spiritual well-being to making sure that you understand what a T-shaped individual and team is. So there's lots and lots of great information out there. So take advantage of that, right? This is going to help you create people who it helps you eliminate the single point of failure and helps you create people who have this T-shaped, frame that are better at solving problems. So it's going to help you get to the point where you have T-shaped teams. I think that the only other really major thing we need to know about this is side effects. So there are side effects, just like all good medicines, you got side effects. So one really cool side effect is that Team John literally helps break down silos. So for the first several sprints when this is implemented, I don't just support people, I encourage people. If you're the only person in a company that knows how to do something, people are going to come talk to you. Because if there's an error, a problem, a gig, something that comes up and they say, hey, we're unable to do X, Y, Z. If Barry is the only person that knows about it, we are going to go talk to Barry. If Christine is the only person who talks about it or knows about it, we're going to go talk to Christine, right? And we being that individual who's rotated off and the Scrum Master together. So that way they can get some answers and figure things out. And what you'll quickly discover is that if that person is frequently getting interrupted at first, they're gonna raise their hand and say, look, I can't keep getting interrupted. I'm not going to be able to get my work done. In which case you say, well, that's important. How are we going to solve the problem? And encourage that individual to share their knowledge. So whether they do knowledge share via some type of broadcast or some type of document or something within a team or something across teams, what we're trying to do is get them to share the knowledge that they know so that they are no longer a single point of failure. And one of two things will happen. Either they will share that knowledge and they'll encourage others to learn from them and come to them when they see these type of issues. The goal eventually is to have 5 people who know 20% of what that person knows, which is great because that still gives you the coverage, but it's across multiple individuals. So you never have a single point of failure. Or that person will become frustrated and say, you know what, maybe there's grass greener on the other side, and it may even end up leaving your company, which I'm going to say maybe okay, because if they were harboring and securing information and not willing to share it with other people, it might be less expensive for you to take other team members and either recreate or learn or catch up on that information than it would be for you to keep that individual along for the ride if they're not willing to share. So interesting concept. This basically says that in a few short sprints, you can get the information that you need disseminated across that team, that you can have the cross-pollination, that you can have greater productivity. But I think there's 2 more side effects that are really, really cool. The other one is improved morale. I've seen this implemented in over 40 of the Fortune 100 companies. So I've had to honor myself individually as a coach or trainer to see this implemented in 40 of the Fortune 100 companies. Now, confession, it's not always the same across all the companies. They will take some of the best pieces of this that fit their organization and culture, and they'll apply it that way inside of their organization. But what we see is that they take pieces that are important and apply them, and you see morale go up. You see people become happier. You see less people working overtime. You see less nights and weekends. You see less people staying late. And it's just interesting because this is all part of the formula of getting people together to do the right thing. Another side effect is innovation, where before you never had time to deal with innovation or do innovation. This gives you the time to have individuals on the team focus on innovation and be able to build new and exciting products and services. So that queue that was never getting touched, that innovation queue, now all of a sudden you got an army of people who are working on it and you're getting all kinds of traction, which is super cool. So it gives you that innovation that you didn't have before. Of course, we talked about the knowledge transfer, but I think the other thing is just, you end up where people can expand their knowledge and they're happy about where they work. And what's the first thing they do when they're happy? They tell other people, which sounds kind of weird, but it increases your ability to get better quality people into your organization because the people who work for your organization are going to tell the world that they don't want to work anywhere else, that this is where they want to be. So you're going to end up with a better quality person in each of your individual roles than you would have if you had not done this, which is pretty interesting because people will talk. And that's basically what it boils down to. People love to share why they love their company or what's so impressive about it, what makes them so strong as an individual and as an organization. So it increases their capability to build a higher quality product or service. Interesting. The last side effect is that it forces you to address technical debt. It forces you to take care of it. You can't go on without addressing that issue. You can't just let debt linger. So now you have an opportunity where you're just like, oh my goodness, we have all this outstanding debt, but it's in your face now. So what are you going to do about it, right? It forces you, before you implement this Team John, you have to take care of the debt. So it forces you to address something that you didn't address before. It also forces you to address team size. It forces you to take care of work in progress and limit your scope. So it gives you a lot of good things that you need to do in order to make this successful. That's going to help your organization as a whole be successful as a side effect of implementing this, which is really cool, because this is kind of one of those things that if you do it right, it really pulls everything together. It really does draw everything in. And finally, application and implementation. I mentioned this a couple of times, but I want to make sure that I exaggerate, or that I make sure I come across with this. Every organization does not implement this the same. I wish they did, but many don't. So what they do is they'll pull pieces away. And the one thing that I can say with 100% guarantee is that every organization I've seen try has seen favorable results. No one's come back to me and said, I tried that Team John thing, it's a crock, it doesn't work. I've never had that happen. So it's just really, really interesting to see that it has a 100% success rate across every team that we've surveyed that has tried it, right? Which is really, really cool. So it's designed to work as we just now described, where one person rotates off, the team size is set, everything works well. But in some organizations, they might say, we're too small, so we adopted this, but we didn't adopt this piece. Or some organizations are so large, they said, we scaled it, and we'll do it one team at a time. Or some organizations say, but what about that one architect or that database engineer that they're a subject matter expert, and I need them when I need them. I don't need them on every sprint, and I don't want to put them on a team and dedicate them. That's fine. So even in that case, let's just take database engineers, for example, or architects, either one, or creative services. Anytime you have a services group that services multiple teams where there's not enough of that one individual to put on every team, you still should have a team of architects or a team of, those individuals that provide that service if they're not needed every sprint. And then what would happen is they would do the same Team John rotation in their group, so that when someone calls upon, hey, I need someone, there might be one of those people rotated off on a Team John, but there may be 4 others available. So you could still do something very similar with subject matter experts to make sure that you can still implement this inside of the scope of a sprint. So it's a good thing for you to practice, even if you're on one of those specialist teams. So even if you're a specialist, you should still be doing this within your team. In no way am I trying to say that you have to distribute, every architect across your team or every creative services person across your team, especially if it wouldn't make sense to have them there every sprint. If there wouldn't be work for them to do, it wouldn't make sense to do that. I fully believe in cross-functional teams, but you want to make sure that you have the right balance of individuals, right? So the key here is that people will over time have better work-life balance. They'll have better communication skills. They'll learn how to talk to each other. What it does for the Scrum Master is amazing. It takes just a little bit of heat off of the Scrum Master so that the Scrum Master can help diagnose the issues. For any of you who've ever attended one of my classes before, one of my workshops, I always say that the Scrum Master is like a doctor, that their job is to check on all the symptoms and to listen to all the symptoms, and then to figure out what the root cause of the problem is. This is no different. The Scrum Master is still a doctor. So in this case, you have a team of medical experts to help you with resolving the issues so that you can keep your focus on resolving the core problems or the bigger problems to help the team perform better over time so that the team can grow and improve, right? So this is just one of a series of tools that we've come up with and implemented, but this one seems to be one of the most popular ones. This is one of the ones that we hear, I have more than 100 emails where people have sent to me and personally thanked me for this tool, for this option. This is where the core team should be able to focus and get their job done and complete their sprint goal and be okay, even in a Kanban environment. Those people should be able to focus and just run through first in, first out. And if someone does rotate off for a breather, whether it's for a day or a week or however you implement it, that person should still have an opportunity to catch their breath. And I think that's the key. But I haven't given you the sham wow yet. Anybody who's taken my session before, they know I always give you a sham wow, a bonus. But wait, there's more, right? There's got to be a sham wow. So the sham wow in this case is how much this costs. I know what you're thinking. You're saying, oh boy, this is going to be pricey. It's free. It literally costs your organization nothing. Hold on, I saved the best part for last. Not only is it free, but it becomes over time a profit center. You end up making money from doing this. The core team's productivity increases, they become better. It promotes good behavior by limiting work in progress, eliminating debt, and allowing teams to swarm. It creates T-shaped individuals and teams where the individuals can cross-pollinate and learn about what each other's doing. And it promotes self-improvement through classes, updates, reading books, whatever they need to do in order for them to become better at what they do. Oh, right? It's one of these things where I tease all the time. I say this probably should have been called the Agile No-Brainer, but I named it after my friend instead. What I can tell you is this is an incredible, powerful tool. And, I hope that you have taken away something from here that's going to add value. I know I have a series of questions here that I have to get to that I'm going to jump in just a second and address. And I appreciate your patience with that. I wanted to hold those to near the end. And I think the key things to remember here when implementing Team John, one, take steps needed to reduce or eliminate technical debt. You got to do that first. And that's why it's number one. Two, make certain your team size is greater than 5 working members. 3, each organization should adopt Team John in a way that fits their organizational structure and culture. It's not a one-size-fits-all offering. 4, allow time to see the results. Don't just think that it's going to happen overnight and that everything's going to be fine. 5, follow exceptions for product owners and scrum masters like we discussed. Align the members who rotate off with remote teams. We didn't talk about this, but if you have teams that are all over the place, make sure that you align and focus on if you're doing remote teams or working remotely, you can still do this type of thing, but make sure you align so that everyone is aware of who's on Team John at what time so they can make sure they're contacting the right person. And of course, we do have a PDF comic of this like we discussed. It's available on AgileDad.com under the comic section. It's already up and up there and it's working great. We tested it before the session. Also, give us about 30 minutes or so and we'll probably have the live broadcast of this up as well so that you can encourage others from your team who may have missed this. What I can tell you is that this is an incredible idea and it's going to roll real well into the 12-step program and then into the leadership session so that we can complete the package for the summer package. I call it the COVID package, right? It's the summer package to where you can learn about steps that you can take in order to help your organization improve. So I hope this was incredibly helpful to you. I'm going to jump to the question session. Somebody asked if you don't have 6 people on a team, can you still designate a person as a pseudo John? So they become the point person. Usually that point person is a scrum master. I don't like to necessarily, do that if the team is smaller, but I have seen teams where they've done that very thing, where they've made them a pseudo Team John person. And they do take on, as you mentioned, some low priority sprint tasks so that if the interruption occurs, it's not interruption across the entire team. It's just interruption with that one individual. So yeah, Adam, I can see that working. It works really well. And that's a great idea. Does Team John participate in stand-ups at a retro? They absolutely participate in a retro. And I encourage them to attend the stand-ups, even though they don't have work on the plate. I do encourage them to attend because they're still team members. Are they expected to report about what they did? No. So they're not reporting in a daily stand-up. I don't want that to disrupt the rest of the team. I want them to be able to focus on fixing issues or recreating issues. I want the team to focus on their sprint goal and completing the work. So I do want some separation of church and state there, but I do think it's important that the people still attend meetings. Do you have any templates to use, considering it's not documents but training wheels? Good question. So yeah, so this is a separate document about Team John itself. We are going to come up with a more formal white paper regarding this here soon, but this is a loosely held document. It's a cartoon thing, plus it's this. I thought that would be a lightweight approach to at least introduce that to teams and organizations. So conceptually, you can get your head around it and do some attempts before we put together the white paper, because I'd love to have some other big companies participate in the study that we've done. So the SME who rotated on the Team John would be potentially disrupting other team members' progress in the sprint goals by taking time to cross-train with an SME. So good question. So if you have someone who rotates out, that's that SME, if they're not a designated architect or a designated database person or a designated creative service person and they're part of that individual team, if they're a core team member, all core team members rotate off, even the SME, because the goal here is that other people will become more knowledgeable when the SME is rotated off, and that the shift of work or focus of work changes so that we can adjust and get used to a better way to handle and disseminate the backlog from a product ownership perspective so that everyone can take on the right amount of work and the right scope of work for that sprint. So I think it's interesting and important that, yes, even the most valuable player rotates off, as well as the people who are just contributors. So it's important to rotate everyone off. That's a big piece of it. If I have a team of only 3 non-IT, I still need to be able to give them an opportunity for learning time away from a sprint. Do you have a suggestion? Yeah, so usually what I do when I have a team that small is we will go through and do either a designated sprint where we say we're only going to take on 50% capacity or allocation, and I do one of those a quarter. What I'll do is I'll work with the organization and say, hey, we want to make sure we take care of this in a sensible way. So, and I make a few recommendations and ask them for some recommendations. So that way it becomes their idea, but I'd certainly still try to find a way to do this to take that pressure off, the pressure cooker, so to speak, so that you can address those issues. Because that's definitely important to address. I had another person here ask about time and materials. They say, if I'm working on a time and materials contract, where do I bill this Team John person to? You bill the person on Team John straight to the project that they're working on. Because believe it or not, by them chasing down the interruptions, they are preventing the rest of the team from being impacted, thereby increasing their productivity. So they are 100% billable to whatever the project code is that particular team is working on. So that doesn't work any different. So if you're doing time and materials or billable coding, you want to bill them straight to the project that they're working on. Let's see. So someone else asked, how do we implement cross-training in a highly siloed, highly specialized environment? I would argue it depends on how highly practical it is to do that. In some organizations, I was at the Federal Reserve Bank. They have some systems that are so archaic that it didn't make sense to cross-pollinate people to learn how to operate these antique, systems. So that didn't make any sense at all. I've had other opportunities within organizations where we had people who were highly technical, but it benefited the rest of the team to at least know a portion of what they were doing, where it made sense. So it really does vary. I know that sounds like a cop-out answer, but it varies from organization to organization. If you see that cross-training is going to be something that's incredibly beneficial because it's going to help everyone successfully, up their game, then absolutely, I carve out time to do that and I make that happen. If you see that there's too many of these silos and that it's very specific and that you really only need one person to know how to do this nuclear actuator, then fine. You don't have to teach everybody how to do that because it makes sense to do the other way. The last thought there is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? And I grew up in the South. So I grew up in Nolan. So if anybody ever says, las elementos relay, no, I just say, para información en español, maqui número 2, and we'll come up with something. But the point is, yeah, I took a lot of Latin growing up. But the point is, we want to make sure that, everyone can focus and that when cross-training is appropriate, we do it. If it's not appropriate, we do what makes sense. Common sense prevails in Team John. So I had another person ask if it was okay to call their pseudo John Batman. Yeah, let's do it. I'm not afraid to give people a name. I think that nicknames and team morale and that kind of thing is important. In fact, I encourage every single person to, if you're part of a team, to embrace team names and team improvement and a team working agreement. It's awesome. This person says they're in an organization with just one team. Okay. So if you just have one team, you're a small organization, then, if you can create something similar to the context of what I'm saying, to where it makes sense within that one team to do the rotation, then by all means do it. If it doesn't make sense, what I'm trying to say is just find a way to treat the team like an instant pot. And at some point you have to release some of that pressure. You can't just keep piling the pressure on, because what we tend to see is when teams become performing or high performing, the instinct of a leader is to pile it on, to give them a little more work to do. Let's give them a little more, until they end up breaking the team, right? And we definitely don't want to do that. So on behalf of my team, we want to say thank you. As always, it's so awesome to have all of you here. We had hundreds of people on the call, and I can't express how much I appreciate that. It goes a long way, and I hope that you'll share this with other individuals in your organization. Feel free to reach out to us at any time. All of our contact information is there. On behalf of my team, we want to say thank you, and that's my family, of course. And I couldn't do this without their support. So I really appreciate them. And I want to give you a closing thought. I always try to leave you with something inspirational. So I don't want today to be any different. You know, it's our responsibility to look at the world differently right now. You know, there's so much anxiety and angst and hate going on, and people just doing things and destroying things and uprisings and things along that nature. And, you know, as a direct descendant from Josiah Henson, who was a slave, and the story Uncle Tom's Cabin is based on his history, I can tell you that we need to grow as a people. And when I say grow as a people, we need to grow in love for one another. And it's important for us to focus on the things that are going to help us uplift other individuals. And if we go about our way uplifting people along the way, it's going to make us a better society and a better people altogether. We need to get rid of all the blindfolds and the glasses and the different shades that the media are trying to blend us all or separate us. You know, we don't need to be separated. We need to, you know, instead of building a higher wall, we need to build a longer table so that everybody can sit at the table. And I just hope that you have an amazing, amazing upcoming few weeks. And we look forward to seeing you again in our next 12-step session. Thank you for being amazing. I love the audience. Congratulations on starting your new job tomorrow. I just saw that. That is incredible. I hope that you can take some of this with you. And as always, take care, stay healthy, stay well, and stay agile. Until next time, my friends, we'll see you again. Cheers.